Good clap.
That was a good clap. You know what they say.
Good clap, good take.
That's right.
Welcome back to Hometown TCG. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Josh.
And my name is John. And today we are continuing our series that you've been asking for on how to take down these terrorizing heroes at your local armories. And today we are tackling Chane.
Yes, but before we talk about Chane, we have a live stream coming up, guys. We want to celebrate the growth of the channel, the growth of our community. It's been amazing. And guys, we have a huge announcement to make. That announcement is going to be made on our live stream at Tuesday, the 22nd at 7 p.m. We're excited. We're going to answer questions from you guys. We're going to talk fab. We're going to give away some Monarch Unlimited boxes. But let's get into Chane.
All right, so Chane, we have to understand what he's trying to do if we want to beat him. So he is another aggro deck like Dorinthia that we've already talked about.
Yes.
And he can just get into these series of attacks that you just can't defend. He throws so many things out there and mixed damage too. It's like, what are you going to do?
Exactly. Chane becomes very overwhelming very quickly. The Soul Shackles, the additional resources, and by resources I mean attacks he can play from his Banish Zone and effects, you combine that with that mixed damage that becomes very impossible to block. Mm-hmm. It's almost like this steamroller's coming at you, and it takes a while to get started, but once that thing's moving, man, you can't slow it down.
Yeah, that's right. So we talk about this this train that kind of gets going.
Yes.
And you'll notice early on, you can kind of trade with him a little bit and do some attacks and kind of put a little pressure on him. But once he gets, 3-4 Soul Shackles, the number of cards he has to play with, you just can't do anything about, and you become a defender at that point.
You absolutely become a defender because he's going to play things out of that Banish Zone. He's going to trigger that mixed damage. He's going to do things like Seeds of Agony into Riftbind, right? Playing an Arcane, buffing the Riftbind, and possibly doing Arcane damage there. With that Arcane damage, he's going to do things like Rip Through Reality, Piercing Shadow Vice, and he's going to close most turns off with a strong weapon attack, normally Galaxy Black.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's talk about how to beat him. And,
okay.
And we talked about these two stages of the game he has, and it's kind of like before Carrion Husk and after Carrion Husk.
Exactly.
Almost.
And there's a way to beat him in each of those stages, but you almost have to know what you're going to do in pregame. Before you draw that first hand, it's important, because the two ways we have had success beating Chane is to either pressure Chane early, break that Husk, get in a bunch of damage before that Steamroller can get rolling, or a big hit effect, a huge turn with lots of damage, a hit effect late in the game, so that he has to utilize resources and it will trigger Blood Debt.
That's right, because if he has 4 Soul Shackles out and he's banished 4 cards, if you make him have to block, or if you have a way of shutting off his go again with a Spinal Crush or like a Red in the Ledger or something, he's just going to die from that Blood Debt.
Exactly. So, and you have to make that decision pregame because one of the most important things to note to turn that off is to mitigate that arcane damage. So you have to decide how much Null Rune you're playing before you draw that initial hand, right?
Mm-hmm. Null Rune is so important for Chane.
So important.
Because Rip Through Realities are a huge part of him being able to chain those big attack strings together, that big combat chain.
See what you did there.
I keep saying chain. I didn't even mean to say combat chain.
But it is a huge combat chain, and you're right, those Rip Through Realities fill in missing holes, because if you've taken arcane damage, that natural go again, it can be a real killer. But you can turn that off.
You can. So he doesn't do like huge strings of arcane like Kano can do. The max he'll be coming at you at a time is 2.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you have that Null Rune 2, you can do something about it. You just have to decide if that's how you're going to play. If you're going to be defensive like that, you got to commit to it.
Yes.
And stop that from happening.
And if you're not going to commit to that, if you're going to look and say, I can't beat Chane that way, your only other option, in our opinion, is that gigantic pressure early. We've seen a lot of success with this with Prism and Bolton as well, with just putting out overwhelming damage early, forcing the Chane player onto the back foot, and never letting them turn the corner without paying the price.
Right, and if you can get them to like break their Carrion Husk before they have many Soul Shackles out, and they don't really have much to do on their turn, and they're taking Blood Debt, and all of a sudden they're having to block, and it just adds up and they can't do anything.
Exactly. So if you can kind of stop that steamroller before it gets started, you're in a good spot. So those are kind of the two ways that we've seen people and ourselves have success against Chane. But there's a lot of pitfalls and traps that people can fall into, and that we've seen them fall into playing against our Chane builds. And it just starts with the 0 null rune, right?
You have to know on each turn what your opponent has to work with. So look at their discard pile and see if they have a Ripped Reality or a Piercing Shadow Vice, something that's triggered off of arcane damage.
In that banish zone, yes.
In that banish zone, just commit that you're going to block that because it can shut down their turn. By stopping that attack, you may have prevented them from doing 2 additional attacks.
Exactly. So shut down that arcane damage if they have ways to go off. If you can see it in the banish zone, don't get fooled. Use that null rune. And that just means that's the second point that we've seen, not accounting for the banish zone. Guys, remember, the Chane player wants to play out of that banish zone. You think you got him against the ropes with a 2-card hand. They banish 3 cards that they can play. Now they got a 4-attack turn coming at you out of nowhere. You have to account for that banish zone.
So next tip I would say is underestimating them, how much damage they can put out in the late game.
Oh my goodness, the fully gassed steamroller, right? If you underestimate that machine, you're in trouble.
Right, if you get into that position where you're trading back and forth with them and maybe blocking with 1 or 2 cards and dishing out a little bit, they're going to progressively get stronger. So if you're even, you're both at 6, 8 life left,
you're losing.
You're losing. You're actually losing. You're not even.
Because remember, their 2-card hand is actually a 5, 6, 7-card hand with that banish zone on that last turn. It can get insane. The final pitfall that we've seen is you have this big important attack, and it's got to hit to turn off Chane's turn, to maybe trigger Blood Debt, and you don't account for Carrion Husk. Letting Carrion Husk soak an important attack or some important damage can be an absolute killer.
Yeah, don't do your big hit effect attack until that thing's gone.
Yes, hold that Command and Conquer. Hold the Command and Conquer. So that's some ways that we've seen success, and I guess the biggest way we've seen success, and especially you, is negating the effectiveness of that Carrion Husk, right?
Yeah, the Carrion Husk is just so important for them. And it allows them to just keep their full hand at times.
Exactly.
So if you can get them to waste it on something like a Kadachi, just something little that pushes them over the top, or maybe 1 null rune damage at a time, something like that to where
but Chane and Chane matchup, I know what you mean. Absolutely. If you can get him close to that 13 where the Husk will auto break, or maybe make him soak a 3 damage attack with that Husk, you're in good shape. Another way that I've seen success, and I think it's success that's been seen against me personally when I was playing Chane, it's a well-timed big turn. And that's one of the paths to victory that we talked about early, is I've got Blood Debt stacking up. I have to keep a couple blues in my hand, but my opponent just overwhelms me. They force the block out, and then I have to hope I don't banish Blood Debt, because I have no cards in hand, no way to pay for these effects. I get Blood Debt, and it's all downhill from there. Because the next turn, I'm only banishing more cards, and I didn't pressure my opponent at all. So we've seen success in that avenue as well.
Right, you have to do the math. If they have 12 life left, and let's say they have 2 more armor on whatever.
Yep.
Okay, you look at your hand. If you can do 14 damage, great. Hold on to it and try to pressure them, because that's getting cards out of their hand. But if you can't do 14, your 13 is not going to do that much.
Exactly, and you have to account for Blood Debt, right, and cards they'll have to use to block, and Carrion Husk and stuff. But yes, you have to plan for that, and you have to plan for them to keep resources. If you can force the Chane player into losing those resources, you're going to see a lot of success. And then finally, it really comes back to paying attention to that arcane damage, man. It gets sneaky, and the triggers off of it can be insane. You have to pay attention.
Yeah, if you do that, a lot of times it can shut down their big turns. So just be ready for it. Commit to the null rune. Even if you have a good piece of equipment that you have to take out for it, just suck it up and do it.
Suck it up. Commit to the null rune, guys. If you're going to go the long game, make sure you have a well-timed big turn. You can beat these Chane players by understanding their biggest downfalls and what they want to do to you and shutting that off, guys. This has been so much fun. Do you have any final thoughts on Chane before we close?
No. It's just that he's a great deck, so you just gotta be on your A game if you want to beat him.
Gotta be on your A game. He's top tier for a reason. Guys, thanks again for blowing up the community. Huge announcement. Tuesday, June 22nd, 7 p.m. Gigantic announcement. Is it gigantic? Is it huge?
Yes, this is legitimately a huge announcement. We have something planned that you have been asking for in the comments. We've been listening to the community, and I'm just excited to unveil it.
Dude, we got something for you guys. Until next time, my name is Josh.
And I'm John.
And we'll see you around.